born in 2009.
Institute for Young Women Development is a feminist organization that works to promote the participation of young women in decision-making and political processes. Over the years since our founding, our work has centered around strengthening the voice and power of young women so that they fight against oppressive systems that they find themselves living in, specifically for us, the patriarchal system, and secondly, the authoritarian system that is prevailed within the broader Zimbabwean body politic. By talking about strengthening their voice and power, what this has meant for us has been doing a number of initiatives that has provided, number one, capacity strengthening, number two, facilitating engagement platforms, and negotiating space so that as young women we're able to penetrate communities and also to have safe space to mobilize and carry out our work, and number three, to provide information around different leadership systems, structures, so that young women have got information to know where to go to in order to achieve one thing. So specifically, we have a capacity building program where we train young women on their rights, and also go deeper to provide political consciousness on why in this age and time and era young women have not been able to access their rights in full.
Vandoda kutenda IYWD nekuti yakandidzidzisa kuti ndofana kugona kutaura dhizwi rangu rinzwi sister.
IYWD works within a framework of 3 thematic areas. One, which is promoting political engagement, strengthening political engagement among young women, where basically we educate young women on their rights, but also go on further to facilitate deliberate dialogue platforms, which we have used over time as a space to negotiate our entry into the communities, our entry into strategic leadership, decision-making tables, so that we influence what happens on the tables. Secondly, we have a thematic area on entrepreneurship and sustainable livelihoods, where we have been focusing on supporting young women, training young women to be able to be entrepreneurs, but also supporting those who are already doing some small entrepreneurial or livelihoods interventions, so that they're able to upscale them and carry them at a sustainable level. So we've supported young women, for example, in tailoring. We've also even supported young women to do organic fish farming, where basically we're trying to promote over and above our entrepreneurial endeavors, we're also trying to promote health living and healthy eating.
Tanga tisingakwanisi kuti tiwane kuchitenga kudya kunovaka muviri, asi patabvisa fishi zedu apa takwanika tichiita sei tichingodya zvinhu zvatakazvishandira nemaoko.
And then thirdly, we also have a program on self-care and well-being, where we have focused on enlightening each other with young women, the risks that come with the activism work that we do, and then training and teaching each other about mechanisms that we can use to be able to cope with the risks and threats that arise from the activism work. The environment in which we work in Zimbabwe is very politically sensitive, and so one of the things that we have strategically done is to come up with inside and outside ways of working. So inside approaches are basically ways of engaging the forces that are against our work. So the traditional leaders, the police who have been resisting our entry into the communities, the different government, institutions that have been closing us out. So we have deliberately gone on to engage them. and make sure that they have information about the work that we do, about our goals, about our vision, and constantly bring them on the table, to say what is it that you think we can do together for you to contribute towards this cause. And so essentially what that has done is to really make our adversaries our allies, and at the end of the day we've been able to have access into these communities. And then the outside approach is where we use where we also train young women on non-violent methods of raising your issues. For example, when to use protest, how to use protest, and how to protest in a non-violent way. Interventions where when dialogue has failed, then you need to push the boundaries a little bit and be able to get your issue on the agenda. And then very interestingly, as well as part of our movement building tools and tactics, has also been our creativity and embracing traditional rituals. What we do with our interventions is we use those kind of traditional rituals, such as traditional biras, mushandira pamwes, coming up with interventions like Dande Mtande, and also using nimbe, which is one of the ways in which people used to use in terms of collective work in the communities. Under one of our thematic areas on strengthening political engagement, we have made a lot of strides, opening up democratic space for young women in rural farming and mining communities to be able to organize, to mobilize and organize themselves around issues that concern them. And specifically, I'll give a few practical examples where we have seen young women self-mobilizing and stepping up their voice and their power in actually, taking spaces in, for example, strategic decision-making positions. For example, we've had young women who have gone out and contested, for elections at school development committees, in clinic committees.
Our other achievement was ensuring that we also have intergenerational conversations amongst young women and other older women within their communities. This came from the background that those that we started with in 2009 as young women will not always be young women, but at the end of the day, they also become the other generation. So we created platforms which were intergenerational conversations to ensure that they share experiences, they also share their successes and achievements and how they did it. It might not be the same experience that they are experiencing as young women in this generation, but those conversations are necessary. They also keep conversations going within the women's struggle.
And additionally, we have also seen young women who have went on and influenced the traditional judiciary system. So the traditional judiciary system in Zimbabwe is very dominant, especially in rural farming and mining communities, is one of the most vibrant, affordable and easily accessible way of getting justice. And given that young women experience a lot of gender-based violence, domestic violence, and even politically motivated violence, we have in the past been seeing a trajectory where the young women go to report their cases in these traditional courts as victims. They are further victimized because the first thing is they are asked, what had you done for your husband to then beat you up? As a young woman, you're not even supposed to be here reporting these cases, because who are you to come and do so? Either your father or your husband should come and report. So when we started approaching these traditional courts, and these young women were actually challenging the way in which justice is delivered in these courts, we've seen the traditional leaders slowly acknowledging the need for them to reform and be sensitive to the rights of young women. So we've advocated for young women who have been actually adopted as paralegals in traditional courts, who now advise the traditional leaders how to handle cases that involve young women. So those are some of the things that we have learned, that being a truly African feminist movement requires you to go back to your own identity and say, what is it within my own identity that is favorable to me, that speak to my humanity as a young Zimbabwean African woman, that I can actually use to navigate sometimes otherwise oppressive powers.